you're curious which areas in the Triangle are growing the fastest, that's what we're going to be talking about today, so stick around.
All right, so we're going to be talking about 4 areas today, and we're going to start with Wake Forest. So Wake Forest has seen explosive growth over the last several years, and it's actually interesting. So U-Haul produces a report every single year with the cities where folks are moving to the most, and Wake Forest was on the list. It was number 15, and what kind of stood out to me on that report was you have places like Dallas and Austin, all these like major cities, and then you had little Wake Forest on the list.
Not Raleigh. You know, it was like,
Raleigh wasn't on it, but Wake Forest was. But all that to say, Wake Forest has seen explosive growth over the last several years and really has seen the population almost double since 2010.
Yeah, just since 2010, it's crazy. So in 2010, it was about 30,000 people that lived in Wake Forest, and now we're around the 50,000 mark, and it is growing. I can't imagine by next year in 2025 what that's gonna be, because it's just new neighborhood after new neighborhood after new neighborhood here in Wake Forest. And then just since the year 2000, the population has increased here by 281%. And Zach actually moved here back in 2011. So when we met, he was living here, and just, you know, obviously I used to drive here all the time when we were dating, and he lived here, and it's crazy to see the landscape change just since then. And, you know, he lived here until about 2016 when we got married. And so just the time, you know, in less than 10 years, how much has grown and changed in Wake Forest. It's tremendous. I mean, and it makes sense. It's a very desirable place to live. You know, you have really nice green spaces. The commercial has kind of kept up with the residential growth in Wake Forest. So there's a lot, you don't feel like, yes, there's a lot of houses, but I still have to drive to Raleigh to do all my shopping. You know, like Wake Forest has its own Target. It has its own Sam's Club. It has lots of restaurants and, you know, all those kind of things. It has a cute little established downtown that has more of like the local kind of stuff, but then you have a lot of the more, you know, chains and things like that. So kind of everything you might need is gonna be here.
Yeah, and it wasn't just U-Haul. Open Door, which is an iBuying company, also listed Wake Forest as one of the most in-demand areas in the country in their report. And so Wake Forest is just experiencing explosive growth. When you look at average price points, because that's something else we're gonna talk about today, average price points in Wake Forest are in the low 6s. However, when you look at the median price point, that brings it down to the low 5s. And the reason that's important, because this is the only area I'm gonna bring up the median price point, is because there's so much luxury new construction that happens, and or just not even new construction, just luxury builds in Wake Forest that kind of pulls up that average to where it's not necessarily representative of what you can find for price points.
For sure, yeah. There's a few pockets of places within the Triangle where people are looking for more of an estate home, you know, like a larger home that's custom on usually like an acre or more of land. That's what we're gonna kind of put in this like luxury estate category. Wake Forest is kind of a haven of that. You know, you have a lot of like what's behind us, you know, where the homes are much closer together, but you also have a significant amount of that luxury, larger lot kind of situation in Wake Forest, especially towards Falls Lake. So, you know, that does pull up that to a place that kind of feels a little unrealistic. You can definitely get in Wake Forest below the 6s.
Absolutely.
The next on our list is Wendell. So we have mentioned Wendell in a few of our previous videos, but Wendell has seen tremendous growth. Not even, I mean, we're talking numbers from 2010 to now has been like 280% growth, which is just insane. But even a lot of that is more like the last 5 years, thanks to about 5 years ago, development of Wendell Falls, which is a huge neighborhood that is still under construction, that has just brought a ton of townhomes, single family homes, and commercial space into Wendell. And now, like, because of that, there's other people kind of piggybacking off of that growth with a lot of other developments. For the longest time, it was pretty much Wendell Falls was one of the few options as far as new construction goes in Wendell. But there's many other options now, but Wendell Falls is still going to be a major driver of population growth within Wendell. Average price points in Wendell around the 400,000 mark. So when it comes to affordability, it is excellent as far as like the Triangle goes. Right, and when you're in a place like Wendell Falls, you're only like, you're less than 20 minutes to North Hills, you know? So you still feel very, very close to the heart and soul of Raleigh. You know, Wendell itself is getting a lot of commercial. There's still not a ton in Wendell itself, you know, like around Wendell Falls now, it's mostly chain stuff, but you know, like they have a Bojangles now, they have a Wendy's now, they have like some, like a small urgent care kind of thing. They have more schools,
I think a
doctor's office, a dentist's office, all like within the Wendell Falls property on their commercial space. You know, you are getting a lot more, but you know, for like going to the mall or more if you wanted to go to like a nicer upscale restaurant, you are going to find yourself going into Raleigh, but it's not inconvenient at all. Like it's so, Wendell Falls is very close to the highway, so it's very easy to get there.
And most of the areas, actually all the areas we're going to talk about today, really have multiple large developments that are leading to the growth. Wendell is one of the few where the main driver is one specific development, and it's just due to the size of that. So.
Right.
All right, so next up on the list is Clayton, which is on the southeast side of Raleigh. So Clayton's population has doubled in the last 10 years. So it was around 16,000 in 2010. It's over 30,000 now. And it is another area that is exploding. Tons of new developments going in within Clayton. Average price point in Clayton is also around the 400,000 mark. And Clayton's one of those areas where you can find a good amount of new construction, but you can also find quite a bit of resale in Clayton as well, which is nice.
Right, yeah, it's probably a good mix of both. You know, you have some really huge neighborhoods in there that kind of, I feel like, have anchored a lot of that new construction, like Flowers Plantation, and then around there, I think that's Highway 42. There's a lot of other things that are like subdivision after subdivision after subdivision. Kind of, we mentioned that Wake Forest, I feel like, has done a good job balancing the commercial with the residential. Something we will say about Clayton sometimes is it doesn't feel like they've done as great of a job on the commercial side keeping up with the population. They've done a lot of road construction to keep up with it, which has been great. Like they've expanded 42. The other parts of the 540 loop are going to help a lot.
Interstate 40 coming into it from Raleigh. And so there's been a lot of growth within the Clayton area. And Clayton's actually, it's in Johnston County, which I think is the only city we're going to be talking about today that's not in Wake County. But Johnston County, percentage-wise, is the fastest growing county in the state.
Yeah, it's crazy. So one of the fastest growing, and most of that growth is in Clayton itself. There's a few other towns in Johnston County, but most of that Johnston County growth has been happening in Clayton. It's the closest part to the Wake County side, so it kind of makes sense that it's not inconvenient to get from Clayton to Raleigh. So I mean, it's been, I feel like it was like the secret hideaway for a while, and then the last few years, it's not so secret anymore. Like everybody, it feels like, is going out that way because it's a lot more affordable.
It is, significantly more.
So the last one we're going to talk about today is Fuquay, Varina. Technically, we just call it Fuquay to make things simple, but Fuquay has more than doubled in its population since 2010, and it is very evident. It is like the new construction haven this past year, I feel like, of the Triangle. So if new construction is what you're looking for, all of these areas obviously have a lot of new construction because these are areas that are growing. But Fuquay, especially, you know, last year for most new construction in Fuquay, I mean, it's crazy.
It is crazy. So yeah, the population in 2010 was 18,000. 2020, it was 44,000. So more than doubled, like Cindy said. And I mentioned that Open Door list earlier. The Open Door is the iBuying company. Part of their list of most in-demand zip codes in the country, Wake Forest was one. Fuquay was the other zip code that made it on the list from our area, which, you know, like from our side, we felt both of those. Wake Forest was high in demand for us. Fuquay was high in demand. Average price points in Fuquay are 480,000. So, you know, looking at the four areas we mentioned, Clayton, Fuquay, and Wendell are definitely some of the more affordable options. Wake Forest is, when you compare it to, you know, Raleigh and Cary and Apex.
Kind of more comparable to like Raleigh pricing. Not as expensive as Cary and Apex, but more comparable to Raleigh.
But it's going to be the most expensive area that we mentioned today. But Fuquay, Clayton, and Wendell, very affordable when you average out how the rest of the triangle looks.
Right, for sure, for sure. And there's been a lot of growth in Fuquay. You know, it's kind of interesting. They have two different downtowns because Fuquay and Varina were originally two different towns. They're really close to each other, but those have kind of, I feel like, revived a little bit. There's like some cool coffee shops and breweries and stuff like that down there. And, you know, you kind of are, that's gonna be their farthest out feel, I think, I mean, I guess Clayton's kind of farther out too, but it's gonna be a little further out from Raleigh itself. It doesn't hug like a side of Raleigh.
Depending on what part, so part of Fuquay, I know I said every area we talked about today outside of Clayton is in Wake County. part of Fuquay, and the vast majority of the new construction in Fuquay is on the Harnett County side. And that's going to feel further out than the Wake County Fuquay side.
Yeah, it's going to feel closer to like Holly Springs and Apex when you're out in Fuquay than Raleigh itself. But these are all Raleigh suburbs generally. It's not like you're going to be super far from Raleigh or anything like that. But it is a really cool place to be, and it's going to be exciting to see what kind of happens there on the commercial side. And there are some parks there, but I'm excited to see more of what happens like with parks and green space in Fuquay over like the next decade.
Absolutely. But these are the 4 areas that are growing the fastest in the Triangle. I'm Zach, this is my beautiful wife Cindy. We are a couple of real estate agents in the area. If you are looking to buy or sell, we'd love to be your real estate resource of choice. You can reach out to us at the contact info below, and you can also find us on Instagram.
Yeah, you can find us on Instagram at the Honeycutt Realtors, or you can reach us at our website, honeycutteam.com, and we would love to reach out and help you with whatever we can.
Yeah, awesome. We will see y'all next time.